Who are some people who died telling us the truth? Ignaz Semmelweis, the first doctor to implement hand washing in hospitals. It saved millions of lives and is the single greatest innovation in medicine. For his radical theory that doctors were killing patients by not washing their hands, he was shunned from the medical profession by his peers. The rejection and failure to adopt hand washing drove him mad. His rival took his job and had him sent to asylum. He died 4 days after being committed, from injuries he sustained from being beaten in the ward. Years after his death, his theories about hand washing were proven correct. Today he's known as the savior of mothers because he first proved hand washing saved lives by implementing it in the birthing ward, where 1 in 4 women died at the hospital during birth. This was because doctors would handle cadavers and then immediately attend to birthing mothers, infecting them. After hand washing was implemented, the rate of death for birthing mothers dropped to less than 5%. Vladimir Komarov, one of the first Russian cosmonauts. He knew the Soyuz space capsule was unsafe. He told them repeated LY, but flew anyway to spare the life of his replacement pilot. Before liftoff, he demanded that when he died, all officials at the Kremlin would have to attend his funeral and see what they did to him. All they were able to retrieve was a charred heel bone. Top image are the Kremlin officials at his open casket funeral. There was a shunned Japanese politician who had spent a lot of his town's budget on building a tsunami wall that was built higher than any tsunami ever recorded in the area. Almost all people in that town cursed him for wasting their money until his death. Then came the big 2011 triple disaster in Japan. No one from the town died thanks to the barrier which withheld the biggest tsunami to ever hit. John O'Neill headed the investigation of the attack on the USS Cole. Warned FBI about Al-Qaeda and bin Laden. Was basically told to shut up. Left the FBI to head security at the World Trade Center because he knew there would be another attack there eventually after the first car bombing in the parking ramp. He died on 9/11. Father Minkler. He was a whistleblower priest in the Diocese of Albany who exposed a horrific pedophile priest and a bishop of the diocese for child sexual abuse and also covering for other clerics doing the same thing. He wrote a letter to the Vatican on the matter and it got back to the bishop, who was enraged and denied the allegations vehemently. For 4 years the bishop didn't know who wrote the letter until a TV station reported it was Father Minkler. The next day Father Minkler was called to the chancery and forced to sign a letter drafted by the bishop's legal counsel denying writing the letter or that the bishop and this priest were guilty of child abuse. 2 days later he was conveniently found dead in his home by his sister. At first it was ruled a heart attack and then changed to a suicide. The diocese produced his signed statement, recanting the letter he wrote, and the bishop claimed exoneration. There was a bottle of pills found near the priest's body, later determined to be muscle relaxers. The church claimed the priest intentionally overdosed in these pills and died. They also claimed he left a suicide note. However, no drugs were found in his system and no suicide note has ever been produced. I believe Father Minkler was murdered for doing the right thing. He was posthumously vindicated after the bishop was deposed in 2019 and finally admitted to having committed sexual abuse against children and covering for others. There are currently 7 lawsuits pending against the diocese due to his abuse. The Idaho cult mom, Lori Vallow's husband, Charles. Not only did he know she was going to kill him, Buddha also knew the kids were in danger and begged the police to address the fact that she was clearly not mentally stable. He finally got the police to require a mental health exam for her, but there's audio of the police officers telling her how to pass it and treating her like a victim of her husband. The audio of him talking to the police is really depressing. Guys just begging them for help and they basically patted him on the head. He was right and now he's dead and so are those poor kids. Really depressing case. Gary Webb blew the whistle on the CIA running drugs starting the crack epidemic. He killed himself via 2 shots to the head and is the grandfather of the 2 gunshots to the back of the head suicide meme. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Jamal_Khashoggi. Not exactly what I think this prompt is aiming at, but these are some examples of people who died while spreading the word of the disasters that killed them. Vince Coleman, a train dispatcher who sent word of the Halifax explosion to an incoming train before dying in the explosion. David A. Johnston, volcanologist who sent word that Mount St. Helens was erupting before being killed in the blast. The radio operators on the Titanic. They were still sending messages even as the ship was actively sinking. Caruana Galizia, the journalist who broke the story about the Panama Papers. Dr. Li was widely regarded in China as a heroic truth-teller. He had been punished by the authorities for trying to warn others about the virus, and then, in a terrible turn, had become everly sickened by it. Weeks later, he would become China's most famous fatality of the emerging pandemic. He was 34. The New York Times about COVID-19. A staggering amount of journalists and Russian opposition leaders. What are signs someone is a horrible person deep down? Lack of accountability. It's always someone else's fault. They use intimate, vulnerable things you share with them against you. Only being nice to people who can be useful to them. How dare you be mad I did something horrible? They are proud of their trashy behaviors. Everywhere is their personal trash can. Choosing beggar. Attention seeker. Thinks that everyone owes them everything. Is only kind to others when cameras are present. Treats service employees as second-class people. Turns people against other people. Everything is about something polarizing to them. How they treat people who are below them. When they love making other people look bad. Constantly calling people out. Putting others down. Disrespecting hospitality workers. How they treat animals, dogs, cats, wildlife. I have been in the car with people who actively try to hit any animal they see crossing the street. That kind of hit. Sometimes there are none. Observe how they treat animals and people who can't defend themselves properly, children as well. You found a 2 kilograms cocaine brick. What you do? I didn't see any cocaine. 2 kilograms of cocaine. I work in a restaurant, it'd be sold by the end of the week. Do a line and immediately remember why I don't like cocaine, then proceed do more until I can sell the rest. I contact authorities and turn in that 1 kg brick I found. Give it to some bears. Is it cut cocaine or pure for smuggling purposes? Or am I not quite sure? Asking for a friend. Please speak clearly and slowly into my lapel, I'm hard of hearing. Make a Reddit post asking how to sell cocaine. Put it in my coworker's car. UCKU Dan. What companies shamelessly make hit products, year after year? EA Sports titles. Home Depot has been selling manure since its founding in 1978. In fact, a quick search of the website found they proudly sell over 178 manure products. Oracle. Products intentionally hitty so they can make most of their money selling consulting just to make it, sort of, work. Levi's. I used to have a pair of jeans for 10 years. Buy 'em now and they rip through a back pocket, crotch and knee in less than 6 months. EDIT. Many are asking a jeans recommendation. Personally I wear Lucky brand. 60 to 70 USD last time I bought them. Very soft, stretchy waist and Norps on any of my 5 pairs in about 4 years on my oldest pair. FIFA. Any printer manufacturer. What was the worst NSFW thing you did? X in the photography black room when I was in high school. Not me but one of my friends in high school stuck his ick on, in a dead raccoon. My dog had just killed it and kinda gnawed its head off so there was a hole and I joked that I'd give my buddy all the money in my wallet if he stuck his ock in there and before I could, lol jokes, he dropped his shorts and hopped on. I don't think penetration occurred but still. My other buddy and I just kinda stood there in shock as I opened my wallet and gave the guy $4. Slept with coworker many years ago while in her office and working on inventory. Used to work at a sunglass hut where it was just one employee per day. I told my GF to show up in a skirt and no panties on. We'd bang in the back room between customers walking in, out. Bell would go off when door opened so I wasn't worried about getting caught. We've been married 14 years now. Many years ago before I became management, I had X with 2 of the managers at my job. Had an unfortunate miscommunication during X once. Had a conversation about how I found facials degrading and wouldn't want to do that to someone. Another about how I find a woman's eyes and smile the most attractive part of them. A bit later we are having X doggy style, and she offers to turn over, saying, "You want to on my face, don't you?" I emphatically declare, "No," and she looks so very hurt. Like I had just taken her self-esteem and stomped on it. Immediately I realized something had gone wrong, so I asked her to repeat herself. It turns out she said, "You want to look at my face, don't you?" We cleared things up and had a laugh about it later, but in that moment I had clearly caused her some emotional pain. I once let a skunk into the restaurant where I was walking overnight, totally by accident. Propped the door for a smoke break and wandered up and down the sidewalk for a few minutes. When I turned around, I saw that black and white tail disappear into the kitchen. I nearly screamed, managed to run around to the other side of the building and let myself in, then made a very calm but obvious series of noises. I wanted the skunk towed aside. He wasn't alone and needed to leave, but I did not want to startle him. Amazingly, it worked out. I would have gotten in so much trouble if that thing went off. Was hooking up with an X in the back on my truck outside of a park at night. We were found by police, handcuffed, put in the back of the patrol car, and eventually released. I've never been more afraid and ashamed. I hit myself on the practice green before a round of golf. Trusted a fart and diarrhea just poured out down my leg and into my shoes. I tucked a towel into my belt behind me to cover the hit stain on my pants and drove home in my own filth. I moved mighty time to that evening and only managed to play 9 but shot 1 over par, which was nice. There was some oops splatter on the practice green when I got back a couple hours later. I knocked a coworker girl out by accident. Long ago, Home Depot clone type store, Rickles, stood in a U-shaped lumber frame that wrapped around Applet end cap. Just as she was reaching down for it, it flipped up fast, hit her in the forehead and KO'd her. I had to carry her through a busy Saturday store to the front office. She came to before I died of stress. I bumped a forklift into an aisle in a Mega PetSmart when I was 16. Turns out, I wasn't legally old enough to drive it. It knocked over like 20 pallets of dog food into the ground. I was so thankful no one was there shopping yet. While in the Navy, I was underway for several months and this chick I was close with was on watch from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I met her in her space, which was a secured space with door codes, and upped her multiple times a week for about 2 months. No regrets.